So it's ridiculous to think that it's far apart. You know, Ayelet to Metula is like nothing, you know? 6 hours by car. Well, if you use good American cars, probably. But that's the thing. It's not very far from each other. And yet, you see the gaps. You see the differences. When I really want to, you know, to make black jokes, and I speak about the fact that maybe we're not so good at public transportation because we don't like trains. Our history doesn't allow us to like trains, but that's, of course, that's a black joke that only a Jew is probably allowed to make. But he knew that unless he takes very, very strong, difficult decisions of how to prioritize the budget, no change can prevail. Nothing will happen. And this is after the Madrid Convention, which was one of the first steps of trying to get into an international supported solution with the Palestinians. Really, a lot was going on at the beginning of the 1990s. Really difficult to imagine 25 years ago, because it looks like, sometimes it looks like a lifetime ago, sometimes it looks like it was yesterday. And I was in my 20s, I was 20 years old. You know, a lot of the Israelis, after the army, they take their backpacks and they go to Far East Asia, they go to South America, some of them come to the United States. I took my backpack and I went to Jerusalem, all the way to Jerusalem, to the Prime Minister's office. Probably the best gift that I could ever give myself without knowing, because being 20 years old, you know, it's great to be young, right? But you don't have enough perspective. And only now do I think that I understand, I truly understand the experience that I had the privilege of being part of. And he made several decisions that were very brave. He decided to freeze the building in the settlements, to draw all that money into the inner part of Israel, behind the Green Line. He made a resolution to raise the teachers' salaries by 70%. Instant decisions, by the way, instant decisions. He decided to invest a lot of money in the Arab population. We have a story that goes like this. During the primaries, we were in a place called Sulem. During the campaign, sorry. After he was already chief of the Labour Party, head of the Labour Party. We went to a place called Sulem, not very far from the center of Israel. And he goes out of the car and he steps into sewage, open sewage. And he told them on that day, it was Saturday, he told them, this is the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to pave a road. And he comes into the Prime Minister's office on July 13th, 1992, elbows Shimon Sheves, who actually brought me to work with him, who was General Director of the Prime Minister's office, Chief of Staff. Remember Sulam? Now, you take care of Sulam. And that's what he did, because he understood that equal opportunities begins with infrastructure. Infrastructure. Nowadays, we're still dealing with infrastructure within the Arab society, but infrastructure is much more than just roads and schools and buildings. It's into education, economic relations. The other decision he makes, he goes to America. At the time, it's George W. Bush, the 41st president of America. I'm very, very involved in what's going on at the moment here with the campaign. I'm enjoying myself so much. I'm not so sure you're enjoying yourself as much as I am. I'm enjoying myself. It's an amazing, amazing campaign. So fascinating. So I'm very much into the 41st and 43rd kind of struggle. Watched so many documentaries recently about the presidents. So he goes to America because Yitzhak Shamir, his predecessor as prime minister, wasn't able to get to an understanding in regards to the American collateral, the American money that was expected to be in Israel. He gets that money instantly. By the way, he meets President Clinton at that time. It was August 1992. Can you imagine? He didn't like him. They were such good friends at the end. He didn't like him. I think he thought he was young and kind of, I don't know, Arkansas. It's amazing. I just met him last week in Tel Aviv. Still, by the way, we're very, very privileged to have had such a unique president with stature, but they really liked each other. And he starts moving forward towards negotiations with the Palestinians, probably due to the fact he was very, very much believed in. That's why the assassination is more tragic than anything. He was a very loved man. And I remember campaigning with him throughout Israel. He was a very loved man. He didn't even realize, by the way, because he was a very shy, embarrassed kind of redhead. And come September 13th, or actually a little while before that, you realize that he expected the Syrian channel to move faster. I think he was very concerned about what was going on in Syria and really wanted to have any kind of pact done with Assad Sr. You see what's happening nowadays in Syria, it's terrible. The massacre there, by the way, I will be getting to the world being quite hypocritical when it comes to Israel. But he proceeds with the Palestinian route because he understands there's a chance. And he understands something that is not trivial at all about the Middle East. I'm not sure how much you can understand that living in America. In the Middle East, when you drown in any kind of swamp, in quicksand, or whatever, you just drown. And you get your arms twisted. And he wanted to run the process, to manage it. You cannot let it yourself be managed by the conflict. You have to manage the conflict. By all means, he did not like Yasser Arafat. I should say probably something a bit more extreme than that, but... And he decides to make the leadership act of coming to the lawn in the White House. It wasn't obvious, he could have let Shimon Peres and Abu Mazen sign the accords, but he decided to do the leadership kind of bravery expected of him, come and sign it himself. He knew the Oslo Accords were far from perfect, but he expected it to set a ground. He expected it to create milestones for potentially a future settlement, a future permanent settlement. Unfortunately, in the Middle East, when peace in any kind, shape, or form takes place, extremists raise their heads on both sides. Can you imagine buses exploding in the middle of Tel Aviv? Yitzhak Rabin, as prime minister, came to each and every one of those terror attacks to see for himself, to see in his own eyes what happened there. He was upset is not the right word. What would be the right word? I have no. Devastated. Devastated would be the right word. He was devastated. But he knew there was no other partner. As we know now, there is no other partner. To tell you the truth, I'm quite apprehensive about Abu Mazen's, about who's going to be replacing Abu Mazen. I'm quite concerned about it. I think most people in security, who really understand security, not like myself, are quite concerned about it. You don't choose your enemies. You don't get to pick who you're negotiating across the table from. The worst terror attacks were, by the way, funded by Iran. They were training the Islamic Jihad. It wasn't the PLO at that point, it was Islamic Jihad that took place, trained and funded by Iran, which of course we will not be avoiding the Iran issue later on in this conversation. But I want to give you a chance to ask questions, so I will be returning the floor to you very soon. And we have come to these days. Israel has